research statistics and evaluation from the University of Virginia. And we're excited to have her here because she holds her degrees in not only early childhood, but also elementary education, educational administration, and educational leadership. So for the purposes of her being here for the next 2 weeks, she will be helping you all with SPSS, and in particular, how you use SPSS, when to use certain stats tests for the T-test, ANOVA, MANOVA, all those great things that we love. We're so happy to have Dean Watson here with us today. This is probably her, I'm sure, like 10th Zoom of the day. So thank you, Dean Watson, and I'll give it over to you to give some brief remarks before we get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just think that the best teachers of statistics are ones that know how to break high-level information down to make it very palpable. And the fact that you have a K-12 background and you obviously love people and obviously know how to connect with people, it just warms my heart. I'm so thankful that you're here representing African-American women in STEM, first of all, and African-American champions. So thank you for being here for this week and on the 18th. I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we can say, Harpo, who this woman? I love that. I love that. But you all, I want you to be encouraged, the doctoral students. You may have thought that looking at statistics introduction to statistics was like a foreign language, because that's how I felt about it. And there's a psychologist that says, William Glasser, he says, you learn 20% of what you see, 30% of what you hear, 10%, it goes on and on. But he said, you learn 70% of what you actually do and can teach to someone else. It wasn't until I got a faculty position where I started teaching statistics that the light bulb came on. So if you're in a gray area, don't be discouraged, be encouraged, and just take this evening as a time of reflection on what you do really well and what you can learn more of. So without further delay, Dr. Wiggins, I wholeheartedly turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watson and Dr. Shakir. So I like my flyer as well. I thought it was so nice. I sent it to my mother, who you'll see again in just a second. I think that Dr. Watson just shared a lot of my values in relation to statistics. Just real quick, I fell in love with statistics when I was in 11th grade and had an opportunity to take a course. I never knew I could have a career in this area. I absolutely love research, period, and when it comes to quantitative and qualitative statistics, anything involving research, I want to do. The whole method I've been using all my life. You ask a question, you dig in, you dig deep, and you find out things. And so I have the same perspective that the more you do, the more you know, and absolutely the more you teach. One tip that I usually tell my students is try to explain it out loud. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it to somebody if you don't feel like you want to explain, but try to work through something and then just explain it to yourself, record yourself. The more you get involved in doing those things, the more helpful it'll be for you, and the more learning, more light bulbs will go off when you stop being like so inside of your head and things. What I really want to make sure we do here is make sure you leave these 2 sessions, first of all, with the resource I already shared with you, and also knowing that statistics is not as grueling as it might seem to be, especially the work that we do in the social sciences. We're not trying to get you to be hardcore statisticians. We're trying to get you to be very sound researchers so you can be effective at your dissertation and your research, and so you can have skills to apply those things later. So real quick, I will go back to Harpo, who this woman. And I also want to say I'm so happy to be amongst so many of my people. I'm just like, you guys have no idea. I'm usually very, very hype and excited, but today I've had a lot of Zoom meetings too, and I just got re-energized when I looked at the clock and was like, oh my God, it's time for me to be with FAMU. Okay, so real quick, just a little bit of background, just some personal stuff. My mom, of course, is very important to me. She will always be somebody that I highlight as far as me being who I am and those types of things. The other people that are important to me, my mom also did my wedding. This is my wedding day, even though it doesn't look like I have a wedding dress on here, the second photo. That's my husband and my two brothers and my mother. And after my father passed away in 2009, they just became, we just got a lot closer, and it's just, it's us. And we love each other a lot. And then my two cats, I have Sir Lucas Blue Winterbottom and then Lucia Marie. One of the things that I love is my school here. When I went to UVA, I had a lot of culture shock, but I persevered. I've learned a lot about myself in different spaces. I'm from Alabama, Roll Tide. And I had never been outside of Alabama before. I never lived outside of Alabama before I went to graduate school. I had traveled and stuff like that, which I'll talk about traveling in a minute. But going to a predominantly white and wealthy institution, one that was founded by, one of our founding fathers who owned slaves was a major challenge. And, I wanted to run away in the first semester, but I learned so much about myself in that space and time. And I also got the opportunity to teach at Howard, like every single fall. And so I think, fall and spring in a lot of cases. And so it's just a wonderful experience I had there. And then travel. The farthest place I've been is to Australia. And that's just a picture on their Brighton Beach. They have bathhouses along. And then another place is my girlfriends and I, who I just adore, who are in this picture on the right. We go to Martha's Vineyard every year. This is the year before COVID. Beautiful sunset there. But those are the things that I like to do, and that's just a little bit about my life. So let's jump right in to a little bit of what we're doing here today. So going back to what I mentioned about 11th grade, in that stats class, I just wanted to throw this phrase out here. All I needed to know, I learned in 11th grade stats. That's not true. But what I did learn is that statistics is everyday life. What I want you guys to understand is that every time they talk about polling, they're talking about statistics. Every time somebody tells you whether or not a drug is effective and how it's effective, they did statistics to get there, to understand. And a lot of the statistical methods that are used in medicine, in law, I taught medical students, I've taught law school students. A lot of these techniques are used across different areas in the social sciences and education, in a lot of different areas, law enforcement. So what the techniques that you'll learn are the resource I give you to take away. It's just a matter of knowing when to run a test, when is the right test at the right time. And not even just that, because what you might find is some tests you're like, well, I can't really distinguish between these two things. It doesn't mean that you're choosing the wrong test. What it means is you have to make sure you justify whatever you're doing. And we'll talk more about that in a little while. Whatever test that you decide to use, dig deep into it, understand more about it, and make sure you feel good that this is the best test for you and your work. And we'll talk about how to kind of go through those processes. Statistics is about like the probability and likelihood of human behavior. So I work with a lot of math experts, right? And they're all like, algebraic people. They talk about calculus. They talk about all this stuff that I'm like, I cried through algebra and don't ever want to see it again, but I love statistics and I love geometry. But one of the things that a lot of mathematicians tell me is that I don't know about statistics because it's not an exact science like math is. Well, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to understand human behavior, is to quantify it and understand it from the space of the likelihood that people will act in a particular way. And so if you kind of think about it in that way, I hope that it reduces anxiety about it, because that's the gist of what we're trying to do. What I want to do here over these next two sessions is to get down to the bare bones. what you need to know to complete your dissertation. One of the things that frustrated me in my dissertation program at UVA was, in my doctoral program at UVA, was I took all these, I'm just, you know, I went all the way up to structural equation modeling. And I learned about it. I was into all of those things, but I did not know when to apply those things. I knew how to do them. I knew how to do them with these beautiful data sets. We have another beautiful data set that I'm sharing with you now. I probably should have done better than that because I hated it. I didn't have to do a whole lot of imputing data and making all these changes that I had to do in the real world and I have to do now. But what I want you guys to take away from here is you hold on to what makes sense for your research. Get to know that deeply and then execute on it. And if you can make that happen, you can finish your dissertation, you can finish it in a timely way. And then the last thing is I want to talk to you how to read. I want to give you guys some ideas about how to use these resources over the next 2 weeks and beyond the next 2 weeks. So when you're not with me and you're alone at home and you're trying to figure some things out, I want to walk you through and share with you how to use these resources. Okay, so now let's go into so just real quick, an overview of the types of research design. I just wanted to, I'm not going to get into detail here. I will send you guys this PowerPoint minus all my lovely pictures. But I want you to just kind of keep yourself in the frame of mind that there are basically 3 typical types of research designs that are out there. And your research question is what should guide the design that you use. And I know you've heard about research paradigms and all this other stuff, but allow your research question, allow you to just make sure you state what that question is, and then you decide, is this a quantitative, would this be answered by quantitative methods? Would it be answered by qualitative methods or mixed methods? Do I need to do something where I'm actually doing both? And so that's just a quick overview. I don't want to, unless anybody has a question about those, I don't want to get deep into it. Because I know why we're here, but I did want to touch on that for a little while, and you guys will definitely have this resource. One of the important things, and this is in the document in the glossary, is the types of variables. In the glossary I shared with you guys, there are a lot of different words because they're used throughout the resource. In this case, I do want us to be very clear on a few types of variables that you'll hear as we do some of this work together. So an independent variable, the way that you need to think about dependent and independent variables is, well, the way that I like to think about them, I always think about the dependent variable as the outcome variable, the change variable, the thing that you want to measure and see what happened there. And then the independent variables are all the different inputs that kind of influence that variable. So all of those different things, it could be gender, or it could be another type of test score. It could be, you know, there are a lot of things that you can use that makes sense. It could be the type of program you experience that makes sense for these different, for independent variables, but always try to keep them separate in your mind as this dependent variable is over here. This is the outcome. This is the thing I'm trying to measure. This is the thing I'm trying to understand change within. And the independent variables are those things that are kind of input that are going to help me understand that change. Predictive variable is under independent variable because in a regression model, those are your independent variables, those predictive variables. So when we talk about regression and we're talking about independent variables and predictive variables, we're talking about the same things. We can use those terms interchangeably, but basically in a regression model, we're trying to predict something. We're trying to understand a relationship between something and some things. And those things are, we want to understand what variables predict something else, and that predict that dependent variable, that outcome variable. And so, and the other part here under dependent variable is this another type of variables called covariates or control variables. Those are very important in a lot of work, especially when we talk about when we're doing work where we have pre-test and post-test and things like that. When you're doing research and you want to kind of equalize the playing field for the whole group. Like, so for example, if you don't know about somebody's knowledge base in mathematics, you're doing some research and you got this math program and you know the people in that math class have different levels of understanding of mathematics. then you may want to do some type of pretest, or you might want to do some type of control of their GPA or their earlier math scores or something like that, so that you can say, regardless of where people are in mathematics, but regardless of what they knew before they came to this teacher, here is the performance. So it kind of holds that constant of, it doesn't matter if you were, on 8th grade level, 7th grade level, 5th grade level, we're going to hold that constant and see whether or not people actually perform well at the end. That is the use of a covariate or a control variable. I'm going to pause there. I know I talk fast and I talk a lot. I can't see people because I got too many screens going. So I want to pause there and see if there are any questions about the types of variables before I go on to characteristics of variables. All right, if there are things in the chat,
You can also put questions in the chat if you like. I'll be monitoring the chat and reading those questions for you, Dr. Wiggins. So if people want to write in the chat, please do so.
Thank you. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about characteristics of variables. So what I mean by characteristics is like, they're just different types of variables. We talk about independent, we talk about dependent, but then we have to go down to another level of, is the variable categorical or nominal? Those are used interchangeably. And that basically means that the variables are categories. They're not this number, they're not on a number line or anything like that. They're just either we're talking about your religious preferences, or we're talking about the country you're from, your political preferences, those types of things. Those are categories. And the term nominal means categorical. Even though it doesn't sound like it, that is exactly what it means. It means that these are categories of things. And then a dichotomous or binary variable are those variables where there's a yes, no, agree, disagree, like, dislike, anything that just has two options to it is what we refer to as a binary or a dichotomous variable. Interval scale variables is where we go when we talk about test scores, when we talk about things like, credit scores and pH balance, height in inches, things like that. One of the ways that helped me a lot when I was understanding characteristics of variables is just to remember the examples. It wasn't about me remembering, the term necessarily, the term categorical and what that was about. What I needed to know is, give me some doggone examples, and I can take it from there. And so that's why I want to share with you some examples of these things that kind of help you understand the difference between them. Ratio is another type of, so a lot of time people lump in interval scale and ratio all together, which is fine, but the clear difference of a ratio variable means that there's a clear zero. So it's an interval scale variable, but like, for example, and then this gets tricky, so I don't want people to harp on this. Weight, can there be negative weight? No, there's weight stops at, you can weigh, 1 pound or up, that type of thing, or maybe point something pound or up. So that's what that means. When I refer to the term levels of the independent variable, all we're talking about is different categories of a particular variable. So for example, using this example with political affiliation, there are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are independents, there may be Green Party, but all that the word level means is what group are you in, So whenever you see the term levels of the independent variable, don't think any further than, okay, do I have several groups and I want to understand some differences there that's going on with these groups. The whole group is like, we're talking about a political affiliation, but there are different categories within that. And then ordinal variables are exactly how they sound. They are variables that go in order. They are not interval scale. But things like income level goes from, income level could also be, it could be ordinal in the sense that it might be low income, middle income, high income, or it could be interval scale as or a ratio variable rather, because it might be numerical. So if it's numerical and not categorical, then it would be an interval scale or ratio variable. For ordinal, though, the key term is that there has to be some order to the variables. Education level, high school education all the way up to a terminal degree. Satisfaction ratings, Likert scales, and some people call the person Likert, but his name is Likert. And satisfaction ratings, things that are Likert scale can be considered a couple of ways. A lot of people treat them as if they are not categorical, but they are in fact ordinal categories. I strongly agree all the way to I strongly disagree. There's an order going on there, and that's why it's referred to as an ordinal variable. It's also used and should be used in computations as categorical and not as a numerical or an interval scale variable. But we'll get there. So any questions about the characteristics of variables? And then we are going to start doing a little bit of practice. Oh, one of the things before I even go to the next slide and take any questions right now, is that I ask that you guys make sure you have SPSS loaded and that you have it up and you're ready to use it, because I want us to actually walk through a couple of examples together using SPSS, using that resource that I shared with you guys, where you have the syntax in there already. So I want to make sure you're getting up and getting ready for that. I think it's really important for you to take this time for us to walk through some of this together, because after that we'll have some time for you guys to walk through by yourself, and hopefully we can come back together after you've done a little bit of practice yourself, and we'll get to that in just a second. But just making sure you get those things opened up now, so I can share some things. I'm going to walk through the document that I shared with you really quickly. If I can pull it up, I can't even remember where I put it. But what I haven't
received the document. Sorry to interrupt. If you haven't received the document, please put your email address in the chat, and I will make sure to make it available to you now. And also, Dr. Wiggins, a participant asked if you could shift the views of your screen so they could see it a little bit easier. I think.
I must be having you guys on the wrong. Hold on. You must be on the wrong. So let me go back to. Let me open up the document that I want to. Well, first of all, now I'm discombobulating myself. So hold on one second. I need to open the. It's never been opened before. Right now, I'm opening my files just as you probably are. So let's do that real quick.
Yeah, and for anyone who may not have received it, please just put your email in the chat. So far, I have Fleming, I have Milanika Turner. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Please correct me. Anyone else other than Dr. Fleming or Mr. or Miss Turner?
And you should get two things. You should have two things. You should have the, okay. So you have to have a PDF that's called Choosing Stats Test. And you should also have a file that has .sav at the end of it. And that file is the one that we're going to use to practice in SPSS here. So real quick, let me share the screen. Oh, wait, let me see the screen I need to share first. I'm gonna go back to sharing my
sure
PowerPoint first, and then I'll walk you through the document before we get started. Okay. And that's the size that you need, guys, right? It's
yes, Mr. Miss Turner, can you put it in the chat or give us a thumbs up, or you can.
Okay. So good. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll go. Okay.
So what I want you to do now, before I go walking through the document, is make sure you open SPSS. Once you open the file, once you open the platform, the software, open up the file, the .sav file that's named this way, and then open up I'll show you how to open up and save a syntax file. I'll get to that in just a second. Today we're going to walk through for sure I picked 4 tests to walk you through both weeks that are most commonly used, most commonly used in the field of education, especially, so that at least you get an opportunity to walk through those and start thinking about your work and your projects and see you know, what works for you here. And these are, the first two are simpler tests, but it doesn't mean that they're any less robust or important than the last two. The last two is when we get into, it's regression types of stuff, and it's you know, just a little bit more complex. But again, I'm going to show you how to walk through each one of those. You'll have these materials to go with you. But now let's talk about how to use this document that I shared with you, the PDF that's been shared. And I got to share a different screen. And that is, where am I? There we go. Share my screen. There we go. Okay, so the Choosing Stats Test document. And I made it as big as I possibly can. That is too big. Okay, so keeping it in 100. And you guys have it in front of you, so just use it. Just walk through it as I walk through it. Okay, so first of all, the data file that we're using. Oh, let me tell you this. I want to shout out UCLA, because what they have given us. Wait a minute, this is the wrong document. Nope. This is the wrong document. Hold on just a second. I need the SPSS one. So I have one for Stata, and I also have one for SPSS. That's what happened. Now, there's the document we need. Okay. Now I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so open your document, this document, and then it talks about the data file that we're using. Again, this data file, your data that you, a couple of things I want you to understand here. This data is for practice purposes. Again, I probably should have given people rough data, but we don't have a lot of time to deal with how to impute and deal with missing data and all that type of thing. But usually when you're doing your research, you're going to be collecting your own data. And as a result of that, hold on, okay. So as a result of you collecting your own data, you're not going to get a perfect file. Now, I'm not going to necessarily walk you through what to do with your own data, but just keep notes on these things. Whenever you get your data, whenever you get your database, let's say you're collecting your own data, you did some surveys, you are getting secondary data like student records, and you're getting their demographic information, their test scores, and all this other stuff. The first thing you need to do is go through and run a few descriptive statistics and make sure your data makes sense. That is absolutely the first step I take every single time. And I don't even run analyses as much as I used to, but that's the first thing I do. I run all my variables and I find out, like, okay, is there something weird in here? For example, if I knew I had a scale that went to 9, well, if I find the number 11 in there, I know I got a problem. And the reason why this is really important, first of all, you want to be accurate. But the other thing is, if you're entering your own data, you guys have a lot of work to do. I'm sure some of you work. You know, I'm sure this is not the only thing you got going on. You got kids in your ear. You got your husband, he want to eat. You got your wife, you know, she want to go, you know, she want to eat too, you know. And so I want you to make sure that you kind of take your time and walk through things and do the work up front, so that on the back end, when you get your results and stuff, you're not like, well, why is that this way? Or what's going on here? So just work through and look at all of your variables in the descriptive format, because you want to see things like range, you know, what's the highest and the lowest number here? Do they make sense, you know, for a particular variable and stuff? Anyway, so with the data set that we're using, it's going to be very simple and easy to use. And that is not going to be your experience with your own data. One of the things I want to ask you guys to do between now and next week is to practice running your own tests with your own data, so you can see what I'm talking about. That way you can come back to the session and say, well, I tried to do this, what happened there? I tried to do this, what went wrong? That type of thing. Like you'll have me for that time to be able to kind of jot some notes down before you turn loose on your own. Unless you guys want to continue to pay me to come back every week. And I'm for it, because I love teaching this stuff. Anyway, so loading your data file, if you have a SPSS, which you probably won't, if you have a data file that has .sav at the end, then it's easy to load. You know, you just open it, you know, open the file, go up to, I'll show you how to do it, but go up to open, and then you find your file, blah, blah, blah. We'll get to that in a second. And then there's some steps that I'll walk you through for just this data set. But in the future, if you had, basically what you might have is an Excel file, and this walks you through how to upload your Excel file. And this is just an example, just to fill in the name of something. I actually put this data in an Excel file. So if somebody says, you know what, I want to experience walking through something real easy, and these are the instructions for it, and I'm happy to send the Excel data file out. And then the rest of this is going to be about running statistical tests in SPSS. There are two ways to do it. One way is a point and click method, where you can basically get to everything you need through going up to, that like the menu bar and clicking around. The way that we're going to go through it today is by using the syntax. The reason is not because we're trying to teach you coding. It is because it is very easy to just replace a couple of words and just highlight and run the syntax. So it's not more complicated than point and click, because you have everything right here in this document. You have all the syntax you need, and then I'll show you where you replace words for your own data set, for example. One very important thing when you're going through and checking your data is that you understand your data. You really know your variable names and stuff like that, because that's what you have to remember in the syntax. And you are doing coding. Just because you're copying and pasting coding doesn't mean you're not coding, because you got to change variables and things like that. You don't change the test, you just change variable names. And so you are experiencing coding. And it's another way for me to share with you, because this is another thing that I love to do and don't get a chance to do anymore, is being able to code and do SQL type of stuff. You're getting an experience like that, and I think everybody should have that experience. And it's not difficult. It's not a difficult learning curve in with me teaching in this way. Okay, when you get to this sheet, this is the second sheet. This is where UCLA did a great job. I in laying out, how to choose your statistical test. I actually added a lot to what they had there, giving you information. I'll get to that in a second, give you information on kind of better, kind of what type of question you might have before you run a test, what type of characteristics of this test you need to make sure are in place. And this is a quick guide to it. So if you had, this is telling you, this is how many independent variables you might have. Remember I mentioned one independent variable, 2 levels, that tells you, this is, let me say this. If you want to use this sheet, what you should do is figure out, okay, how many variables do I have? What variables do I have? Don't worry about whether they're dependent or independent yet. Just make sure you list all the variables, the things that you're trying to run your statistics on, the things that are in your data set. And then you determine, okay, which ones are my independent variables? Which ones are my dependent variables? And then once you go there, you figure out, okay, how many do I have? Okay, well, let's say I have one interval scale independent variable. All right, so you're like, okay, I'm in the one interval scale, I got it. And then let's say you go to the next one and it says, all right, this is how many dependent variables you need. I got one dependent variable. I'm looking at the relationship between height and weight, for example. So my one independent variable is a scale variable, height in inches. And then weight is also an interval scale. It's a ratio variable, and it's my dependent variable. And I have that. My dependent variable is again interval ratio. Going back to that glossary, those definitions, and so I need to run a correlation. Now this is for a quick guide. I put next to here the page numbers where all of the these tests are, because that gives you a lot more information for you to use when you're picking the statistical test. For this one, you might just want to do like, okay, let me see if I got if I chose the right one, then drop down to where there's more explanation, and then that'll share with you. Oh, somebody's hand is raised.
Yeah, yes. I was gonna say you have a question.
Charlemagne, yes.
I tried to click on the link, and the link is not active.
This one?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I can, I'll make that change.
Okay.
Basically what it is just, it's taking you directly to UCLA's page. It's less than what I have given you, but it's giving you back the resource for the purpose of, let's say you're not using SPSS and you're using SAS or Stata or R. It walks you those tests. So that's what that link is for. But I'll make sure I fix the link and send it back to you.
Okay.
So you can get it, of course. Any other questions? Hold on, I'm making a note on page 2. Okay. So now for the rest of these, I'm not going in depth right now, but basically what I have done for you guys, what you'll see for each one of these tests is the type of test, the kind of reason for doing the test, these are the characteristics of that test, and you need to have these things in place if you think you want to use that type of test. This is a sample question for each one of these different types of tests. This test right here is not used a lot. This is an easy one for you guys to practice on because it's not normally used, and it's probably something you won't use for your dissertation because it's way too simple. But anyway, it's still here because it's it kind of gives you a victory right away when you're practicing. The sample question, the way I want you to use those sample questions are read what is there for the example, but then say, I got this, I got that. Let me see if I can word my question in a similar way. And that way you can, that's a way for you to even basically evaluate whether this is the right test for you. Does my question sound, and don't try to force your question into this, but think about what your research question is, and then read those sample questions and say, oh, I think mine sounds like this, or I think it sounds like that. That's the way I want you to use it there. Here's where I just show you kind of what back going to that overview of the chart where it has how many independent variables, how many dependent. I go through that again and I point out which ones are the independent variable and which ones are the dependent variables. And in this case, I explain to you why there are no independent variables. And again, that's something for you to read later. When it comes down to statistical interpretation, what I walk you through is this output. So I share with you for each one of these different tests is exactly what table it is and what you need to be paying attention to in the table. What those things with a huge tip. If I didn't put it on here, you might want to ignore the table because there's a lot that comes out of especially SPSS. Stata is a lot more tight, but SPSS gives a lot of different tables that you just don't need, and what you need are the tables that you need to interpret. And so I walk you through how to interpret each one of those tables. And then finally, I give you a framework for writing up your results. Now, of course, when you write your dissertation, you're not just going to be writing a couple of sentences of results. You got to go more in detail about things. But basically, you could use the write-up pieces as like your introduction, your first 2 sentences in when you're trying to explain what your results are. You can just plug your ideas right in there and use the same language is the way I tried to give it to you. And then I also put the statistical notation in here so you'll know where to add that information. And so this is for every single test that is in this document. What the original SPSS, the UCLA document does, it doesn't give you this much. It just shows you here's the output, here's how to interpret it. And then you're looking around for where should I look? What table are we talking about? Okay, where's that number? Where's that number? And I try to give you a better view of not only how to interpret the output, but also even before you get there, making the right choices about your statistical test.
Dr. Wiggins, we have a question from Mila. She says, what if there are concerns about the normality of the distribution?
Usually, when there are concerns about the normality of a distribution, there are ways. So there are a couple of tests that tell you where to look if your distribution is not normal. It'll say, okay, on the next table, you need to look here instead of here. And we'll talk about that in one of them. The best way I can explain that is to not concern yourself too much with the normality of the distribution. Make sure you run your results, explain your results, and name, give an indication that your distribution was not, was skewed or whatever. And I don't go into descriptive statistics with this, but there are ways to you can create a histogram and do different things to find out whether or not you have a skewed distribution. And so it's important for you to make sure the point of dissertations, guys, not the point. First of all, the point of them is, you know, you show your brilliance and become a doctor, and, you know, Dr. So-and-so and all this, you know, great, wonderful things for your life happen and all that type of thing. And you're a scholar and people listen to you finally. But one of the things about making sure you get through a doctoral program, again, is making sure you know what to do for your research and you are able to justify your choices. What I tell my students all the time is when you, in justifying your choices, people are hard pressed. If you have a justification and it's grounded in the research and the literature, you looked it up and you found out, for example, from the question, okay, what do I do? You know, this is my variables are not normally distributed, you know, so what I did was X, Y, and Z. It's just up to you to make sure you are very open and transparent. You might say, I did not make any adjustments, and my distribution was skewed. And then you write that and you say I didn't, and you explain why you did not make any adjustments, or you explain, you know, or you explain I did make adjustments because it wasn't skewed. So I don't know if that necessarily helps you. I would have to kind of teach in a different way to get deeper into that. And I tried to take out those places, but I don't want you guys to be the places where it talks about normal distribution and all this stuff. But then I didn't want to hide anything from you necessarily. So anyway, so back to here. Any other questions before I keep just scrolling through this real quickly, because I want us to get to some practice. There are also tests. So there are tests where you have your dependent variable, your outcome variable is a quantitative variable, is an interval level variable, and then there are different tests where your dependent variable is a categorical variable. You know, so I make sure you understand that. Like you see in this chi-square test, your independent and dependent variable are categorical. But again, going back to the way I want you to use this is for you to look at the type of test and to look at the sample question and then decide, does this make sense for what research I'm doing? That's the best way for you to kind of walk through this and then determine what your test is going to be. And again, if you take the time to practice over the week that we're not here, you'll see what I mean, and then you'll be able to ask me questions to where I can help you better define what you're trying to do and what you need to do. And so instead of walking through everything, I just want to, you know, so every one of these has this kind of one page first of kind of explaining all of these things. It has your syntax, which next after, you know, here's the syntax. This is what you copy and paste directly. And for our practice, we're going to be copying and pasting directly. For when you're on your own, with your own research, your own data, you still copy and paste, but here are areas where there, you know, female is a variable in my data set, in the data set that we'll be using together. So you would have to change that name when you would have to change that variable name to whatever's in your data set when you're using your own data. And I will try my best to remember when we walk through something to show you kind of why that matters and where. Well, first of all, if you don't have this variable in your data set, it's not going to run, and you're gonna be like, okay, why didn't it run? It's because you didn't change the variable names. Here's another one. This is a variable name. So what you'll get used to if you walk through a couple of these, where the variable names are and where the stuff that you don't need to change. So for example, this is going to always be the case. You're going to always, when you run a two independent samples T-test, we're going to do that in a little while. You're going to always have these words and these words, you know, you're going to always have this writing, and then you go in and make changes to this and this. Or you might even make changes to this depending on how you coded your data. Again, we'll get there in a little while together. Also, I want to say, I know that this is a lot, and I know that you guys have had courses and stuff like that, and it's a lot in a couple of days. I hope some of this stuff is resonating with you as we walk through, but I also want to say that if it's not, I don't want you to feel worried about it, because when you get a chance to take it all in, sit down by yourself, work through one or two of these examples, work through some examples with your own data, then I think that's the way things become clearer. So right now I'm doing a lot of talking at you, and I understand it's hard to keep up with everything. I'm glad this is being recorded so you can walk through that and use that. But just to let you know, if you feel overwhelmed when we finish this, that's okay. That's a normal place to be in. And things will get better when you start to do some practicing. Okay, so, and then the third part that'll be for every single test will be the actual output that you have to read that comes out of SPSS. So I'll skip all the way down. I go from the simplest test all the way, and all of the tests that I put in here, I didn't put all the tests that are possible. I only put the ones that are most common in educational research, and it goes all the way through, I think, multivariate regression. Oh, multivariate multiple regression is the last one. That we use. This is the most complex one of all the tests, but it's used a lot in education research, and I'll tell you why when we get there. And then the last thing you'll see is a glossary. I think every term that's in here that could possibly need to be defined is being defined here. And also I've added something that's not a definite, like p-value is one where, people, when they're learning about stats, they kind of get a misunderstanding. So I kind of gave you as much as possible that I could give for you to kind of understand that in language that I think is easier to understand. And then here is this is not really a definition, but it's how to recode a variable. And I use an example of changing female in our data set to gender, so you can get that experience of you trying to recode a variable, because in your own data, sometimes you have to do that. Here's one common reason where you need to recode a variable. Sometimes when you do a survey, you ask positive questions or let's say asset worded questions, and you ask kind of deficit worded questions like, to what extent did you dislike something? Well, sometimes you have to recode that so that the ones, you have to recode negatively worded questions so that the values match up when you do your analysis. So for example, one then ends up meaning we don't want what am I trying to say? 5 means strongly agree, for example. Or 5 means, okay, this is what we're looking for, as opposed to 1. But you have to make sure you switch all your variables around for certain questions. Again, this might be a bit much for you guys, but you may have to do this, and I want to walk you through how to recode in SPSS, recode your variable in SPSS. And there are 2 ways to recode, but this is a common way. So I just show you how to recode into a different variable, which is I should have said that in here, that it's recoding into another variable, which is what I like to do, because I don't like to mess with what's in my data set. So if I had to let's just say, for example, I had to recode race. So let's say my data set, everybody wrote it, it's a word, it's African American, Latino, blah blah, and I needed to get numbers because I need to run some stats. So I needed to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In that case, this is what recoding is about. And I don't change what's in that column. I leave that because I'm scared. I don't want to touch that. Don't bother that. That's good. And then I recode into a new variable, so I get a whole new list of variables, and I'll show you guys, because we got to walk through recoding, I think. No, we don't have to walk through recoding anyway, but maybe I'll try to figure out for next time to show you what it looks like when you recode. It gives you a new variable, and it gives you a new column with a variable name, and then it changes things into numbers, but it leaves your original thing there so that you don't feel like you lost something. And that's why I showed you how to recode into a new variable as opposed to into the same variable. Okay. So now now we can open up SPSS, and we're going to look at the test called let me go back here. We're going to do 2 independent samples T. So let's all take a little short break. And at the top of the hour, we will come back to walk through doing 2 independent samples T together as a family.
Okay, and we can also do some whiteboards for annotation if people want to be able to kind of write on it, I guess, and see kind of where they may need help as well.
Okay, I have not used whiteboard, so what does that mean for me?
I'll put on the annotation. I'll put it on so they can annotate.
Okay.
But since you're sharing your screen, you may have to, at the top where you see view options.
Oh, okay, hold on. Do I need to go back to sharing?
Mm-hmm.
get to this. Okay, let me go back to. Oh, there it is. Okay, now, so then I go to where now?
So go to view options at the top right next to your name in green.
My name is in green.
Oh, mine is in green.
Oh, wait, I know what you're talking about.
See it there? Okay.
Is it? Hold on.
So to view options is to the right of where your name is highlighted in green at the top of your screen.
Well, that's the problem. I don't see my name.
Since you're sharing, maybe you don't see that, or your toolbar, wherever your toolbar is for sharing.
I'm not finding what you're talking about. I'm looking at the share. I'm looking at, let me see. I'm not getting to it. I don't know what to do.
Okay, I'll share my screen and do a practice one, okay?
Okay. Oh, make sure you're loading. If you haven't loaded SPSS load, it takes a second. So. Am I still sharing? Did I stop? Oh, there you go. No, that's me. Okay.
I'm not on my normal computer, so hold on a second.
Stop.
So what I just did can you see what I just did when I shared my screen?
Hold on.
You see how I just drew on that picture that's on the screen?
Oh,
I'll stop sharing.
I see what you did. But
right.
Now
so when you share, your toolbar will come up depending on how your settings are. Your toolbar will either come up at the bottom or at the top. If it's at the bottom, you want to hover over those additional settings, and you should have something that says annotate kind of towards the bottom right if it's at the bottom. If it's at the top, it's going to be under view options. And you can pick the tool that you use, drawing, your mouse, you can do letters, any of those things.
Okay, now I want to look for my toolbar because I got this open.
Mm-hmm. So it may be at the bottom, where it has the green and the red for stop, share, and all that, whatever it has at the bottom, depending on where you have it.
I see it. It's actually right in my face the whole time.
Okay, that's okay. No, it's kind of weird at first. So if you want to annotate, you can annotate and write on the actual document that you're showing them, or students can also do that. Some of them may be accustomed to doing that already in some of their courses, but we use that sometimes. So if people want to kind of, write on there, because we don't have like an emulator that's letting them actually, write on it like how you could do with some of those other emulators.
Got it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, did everybody get a chance to take at least a little bit of a break? And is everybody all set up? I can see you guys now, but I want to make sure you're good to go. We're gonna walk through opening the syntax file. You go up to file, you go to open, you go data, and then you find that you actually don't even have to do it that way. You could just open, you could just go in your James, I'm gonna hold that question to the end, so make sure you ask it again about whether or not you can contact me after.
Right.
And that's not a no. I just hold. Just please hold. Put do the church finger. Hold. Okay. So I'm gonna so you can actually go to wherever the file is and just double click, and it'll just open up an SPSS. And I am going to open this file. Hopefully, it's not the one where recoded anything. Okay, when you open a file, a couple of things pop up. This is the actual data file. The first thing, wait a minute, did my screen stop sharing?
Yes, it stopped sharing, so you got to reshare.
The first thing that opens up when you open a data file is the actual, when you open up the file, it populates in the data window. There are two ways. Oh, let me tell you this before I tell you the other thing. The other thing that you saw open up, I'm going to stop sharing it and then share that, is called an output file. This output file that I'm showing you right now is basically already starting populating code. And every time you run a statistical test, it's going to populate, it's going to show you your output. This is where that's going to come. My strong suggestion when you're practicing is, as soon as that this output file pops up, save it somewhere. Save it, and then keep saving it, or save it before you close it again, so that you can always go back to what you did. It doesn't mean that you can't you can create as many output files as you want to, but when you're doing practice, it's always a good idea to just make sure you go back to like that same sheet, so you can just scroll up and down as much as you want to. And then, so keep that running in the background. That's going to always pop back up to your face whenever you run a statistical test. And then going back to the data, let me show you the structure of the SPSS data. So the first thing is, you see how everything populated with all these decimal points. This is the way your data looks. This is the actual data file. It looks just like an Excel spreadsheet. The top row are your variable names, and then every other row is an individual that you collected data from. Some of you guys' spreadsheets will have an ID in there, for example, because you got students or student names or whatever it is, however you collect your data. I doubt if you can do it through student names, but anyway, you'll have some ID or something in there that's just something for an identifier for you to connect data files and stuff. Is not very useful. This one went cut straight to the chase. No IDs, no nothing. We're just jumping in. What I'm about to show you doesn't have to be done, but it makes me more comfortable because I feel like I don't like all these decimals, basically. And then also the decimals don't make sense. Female is coded as female, which means gender, is coded as 0 and 1. 0 is female, 1 is male. And so I want to see zeros and ones. I don't want to see 0.00. So go to variable view. And what I like to do is just change all of these to 0. And I think I can copy and paste. Oh, shoot. Why is it not just copying and pasting? Okay, there we go. So change all of these to 0 because that's for my anxiety. So you see, I'm going to make sure I go through it. Now, when you have like 1,000 different rows of data, you might be like, I really don't care about these decimal points. In fact, I would just hire somebody to get rid of them, because I just can't stand it. And that's my own anxiety, but I finished it and now it's done. Okay, another thing you see over here for all of your variables, this is the reason it's called variable view, is because it's showing you what your variables are, what they are about. It is very important when you load your Excel file, you have all your data, to make sure you go through this, and you don't have to worry about width. You might need to worry about these did have ID in there. And I'm not going to change any of these things, but let me just show you something. It's showing you the type of variable. The type of this column is showing you the variable name, the same thing that goes across the top in the other view. And then the type of variable is important, because if you keep it numeric, everything will be fine, it'll work out. But some things are categorical that you need to make sure you name as categorical. And that's where you click on those 3 buttons. This screen pops up and you can change it to a date, a dollar amount. You can change it to string. String means words. And so if you wanted to run some, if you're doing like a chi-square or something where everything is categorical, it might be okay for you to change it, make sure you change those variables. So that's what that means. The width of the column is not important unless you have a long string of numbers or a long string or a word that's really, really long. It'll cut off if your column is not wide enough. The decimals we just went through, and that rascal didn't want to change. I got him. And then the label is another thing that you absolutely should be doing, because when your output comes out, it will label it if you have already labeled things. Same thing with the values. I just told you guys that 0 is male, 1 is female. So you need to make sure you go in and give values to your labels if you have not done that already. Because and the reason because if you don't do that, when your output comes out, you're gonna have to go back to, wait a minute, what was 1? What was 0? Wait a minute, what am I talking about here? You know, and it's too much. It's not necessary. So just go ahead and get yourself ready up front. And then scores like reading score, writing score, all of these, they don't have any labels because it's just a numeric value. It's just your, interval scale variable. Any missing data, you can leave that as none. It's probably not going to be true, but just leave the rest of these. Just don't even worry about it. So going back to that, it doesn't matter. You can keep it on data view or variable view, whatever. It's, the stats are still going to run. The next thing I need you guys to open up is a syntax file. Go to open, go with syntax. Oh, is that the wrong way? No, I want to get new syntax. Is it that way? How do I? Okay, but this is the simplest thing to do. And I cannot remember how to open up my syntax file. Let me stop sharing anyway. Hold on 1 second. I want to open up my old syntax file. Okay, I'll figure it out in a second, but it's taking me too long. Where's my SPSS folder? I did not save my syntax. What am I missing? Okay, give me a second, guys. For some strange reason. Oh, let me show you this while I'm doing what I'm trying to do. I need the one that says that one. Okay. Let me show you what I meant by saying you can either do point and click, or you can do this, copy and paste the syntax. Anytime you want to do any of these tests, you can do, let's say you want to do descriptive statistics, you go to analyze, descriptives, you want to say, I want to do descriptive statistics, a box pops up, you put your variables in, you want to describe a couple of things. Let's see what our data is looking like for every one of these. Like I told you, you want to make sure you take a look at your data, push everything over, say okay, and then it gives you a lot of information. One of the things I told you to make sure you select when you do descriptive statistics to check out your data is range and stuff. And I think that you can pick it by going to options. Yeah, you can pick range, variance, you can pick whatever you want to pick. You can pick skewness, and then go continue, go okay, and then it gives you, so for example, here's what I meant when I was trying to, I see something in the chat, hold on. Yeah, Charlemagne, I go to file, oh, yes. Okay, hold on, thank you, Charlemagne. Okay. So let me show you this real quick. This is what I was telling you about how to read your data, how to try to understand what your data looks like so you don't make, so you don't get down the line and you're like, what happened? What's wrong? Why does that look like that? We already knew female, which is signifies gender, has two values in it, a 0 and a 1. And so this range is telling you that the minimum value and the maximum value, if this number was like, different from what I was expecting, that lets me know there's an error. There's some type of error, of a data entry error, basically. And so the same thing for the rest of these. There is a range for race. There's either 1, 2, 3 is the highest. And so that's another. So it's just showing you, it's a way for you to quickly glance over and make sure your data are right. Yes, Charlemagne. Why was that? Oh, child. Some of the simplest things, guys. Okay, now let's go back to, I think you can still see in this, what else is like, oh, let me show you some more, just real quick. Some of these comparing means, for example, that's where you'll find your t-test, one sample t-test, independent sample, paired sample, ANOVA. So going back to what that document I gave you, the resource, you can also do these things in point and click. But they're just there's a lot more steps than just copying and pasting. But it also is easier. For example, go to general linear models for things like multivariate tests, and then correlation is here, regression is here. So anyway, going to analyze and doing that. They even have power analysis in here, and doing point and click is also fine. And it also show you, if you do point and click, it also generates the code. So for example, here I ran Descriptive Statistics, and it just generated my code for me. And it always does that when you do that. So thank you so much, Charlemagne. So open up a new syntax file, because that's what we're going to be using as we walk through this example. Go to File, go to New, and then go to Syntax. As soon as you open up the file, go ahead and save it, because again, this can be a running list of your syntax. What does syntax mean? In your document where it shows you, where it says SPSS syntax, is that stuff. Is what you'll copy and paste right into this document. And I'm about to show you exactly how, and then exactly how to run things. And you'll see how quick it is, but I'm also going to show you how it looks different if you're doing different types of statistical tests. So let's do this together, and I'm going to go as slowly as I can, making sure everybody is ready to go. We're all right. We're all on the same page. I'm using a Mac right now. Whatever you're using, it doesn't matter. 3 files always remain open in SPSS. It's your data file, it's your output file that I told you go ahead and save, and it's your syntax file. So you can always get back to those 3 things because they're always running in the background. Just because you don't see them don't mean that they're not there. Doesn't mean that they're not there. And so I want to make sure you guys are seeing my syntax file. My syntax document. It's just a blank document. Can somebody tell me that they do see it or don't see it?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to go to our sheet, and we're going to go down to choosing 2. So we're going down to page 7, where it says 2 independent samples t-test. Before we even run it, let me explain to you why you would do a 2 independent samples t-test. The purpose of this is when you want to compare the means for 2 independent, mutually exclusive groups. In a lot of cases, in the regular layman's terms, those groups are treatment and control group. But they also could be 2 groups that are males and females. The key here is that you have 2 groups that are exclusive of each other, and no person from one group can be in the other group. They are completely different groups. So you got that, right? And what you're trying to do here is you want to say, okay, I want to understand the differences in their test scores, or their weight, or their running time, or whatever. I want to understand the differences in those things. But it has to be the differences in interval scale variable. Like the variable needs to be an interval scale variable. It can't be, for a 2 independent t-test, it can't be a categorical variable. That's your dependent variable. And so again, a lot of times this is used when people are like, okay, I got a control and a treatment group. I got, 2 different separate groups for whatever reason. Even if it's not control and treatment, I have 2 different experiments or whatever they want. That's what they this is the type of test that they like to use. I see a question. Oh, that's the email. Okay. The next thing is sample question, just as simple as that. If you're doing dissertation research and you want to know the difference between group means and stuff like that, I strongly encourage you to do some regression analysis, but you doing this is not going to hurt you if you ran this type of test. But basically the sample question is the average writing score the same for males and females? Our 2 groups are, group 1 is male, group 2 is females, or however you want to say it. And then and those are our independent variables. And then our dependent variable is average writing score, our writing score, basically. So here we go. This is a variable. Gender is your independent variable. It has 2 levels. Remember, I said levels are just categories, female, male, and then we have writing score as our variable, as our dependent variable. That's what we want to see if there's a difference in their these groups' writing scores. So you copy the syntax and you paste it right over here. And here's where it shows you when you do it in a syntax way, you figure out what needs to be changed. The things that are in color, don't touch them, leave them alone. For our data set, as you already know, when you look at the data view, there are 0s and 1s there. If we left the decimals, it'll probably say 1.00 and 0.00 instead of 0 and 1. But this is the variable. So let's say you're doing it with your own research and you were doing research on comparing differences in, 100-meter dash time, then by race, for example, then your variable that goes here needs to be not female, not that gender variable, but race, whatever you're calling that in your data set. You have to replace that, and all you do is just type over it, because you can either type syntax or you can type it in yourself, or you can copy and paste it. And then the other thing you would have to change is you want to look at run times, right? So whatever that variable name is, make sure you plug it in. Once you finish, you highlight everything and you click this kind of go button, the play button. And then another screen is going to pop up, which is going to be your output. And that is the one, when that output comes out, make sure you save it and you just keep it. And I think that's not showing right now, so I'm going to change that, and so we can walk through how to interpret this information. Show you my, does everybody have this output? If that's what you wanted to do, you got your output come out.
Dr. Wiggins, I apologize. Is there any way possible you wouldn't mind going back to the syntax? And for some reason I'm struggling to figure out how you got the syntax. I'm a point and clicker.
That's why we're here. So we're not doing point and click. What I want you to, I see you are a point and clicker. So okay.
Yeah, so the syntax. So I totally missed out on how to get that syntax into
no problem. So first we want to go to File, New, and open up a syntax file. So a blank file, a blank kind of sheet where you'll be populating the syntax. And then you want to, so once you get that, go back to that sheet that I gave you, that choosing a statistical test, and go to page, whatever page it's on, page 3. And you see, page 7. What am I talking about, page 3?
Oh, literally just copy and paste that?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what you do.
Overthinking it. So I'm so sorry.
You also have a question in the chat, Dr. Wiggins. What is the advantage of using syntax instead of point and click? Kind of similar to what Dr. Fleming was just asking in a way.
Okay. So the advantage of using point. So for me, and this could be different for you guys. For me, first of all, I'm showing you this way. And because you have all the syntax in that document, it is not a difficult thing to do. It's not something that is like you got to make up your own syntax. You have the syntax. All you have to do is change the names of your variables. But in my experience, it's a lot quicker to use syntax than it is to go through all the steps of pointing and clicking. Now, you might find as a student that it's not a lot quicker, but basically what you're doing when you point and click is you're still going to get the syntax that comes out after. It's all the same thing. But to answer your question directly, the advantage is it's just a lot faster. It's just, I need a t-test. Let me put the syntax in here. Let me copy it from this document and change up a couple of words, and then I'm done. As opposed to when you have a huge model, like let's say you're trying to do a multivariate regression model, it's a lot of things you got to move over and do all this when you can just type these things right in. So basically it's just the quickness, the efficiency, and also ultimately you can do a lot more. Like when people get used to doing this work, you can do a lot more than you can with the point and click if you're using syntax. Now, that might not be your goal here, but mainly it's just a more, for me, it's quicker. It's a lot more user-friendly, especially if you, usually because I do coding and stuff, I create my own codes. I mean, like a code book where I keep up with everything I've ever run. So I just need to copy and paste. And so it just becomes a lot quicker. For you guys, you can do the point and click, and maybe I can walk you through point and click for the regressions next week, so that we, you know, kind of get a taste of both. Let me make a note of that. But I would like for you to experience doing it, using syntax and understanding what the syntax is saying. So I'm glad you asked the question, because I want to walk you right back through this just for a second. We're doing, you know, 2 independent samples t-test. Here is the syntax for it. This is basically saying what I want to do is do a t-test amongst groups, and I want to look at female or gender rather. And then the differences in writing scores by gender, which is named female in this group. And if you are by yourself, if you want to practice this alone, you know, by yourself with a whole new data set, the only things you need to change are the 2 variable names. Here's something else that actually just illuminated for me as I was showing you that. You can understand better. You can eventually understand better what you are doing when you're using syntax. When you're using point and click, you're sending things over, right? When you're using syntax, you have to make sure, like, okay, wait a minute, is this my independent variable? You have to do it with point and click as well, but there's just a different way of processing that happens when you're using syntax, because you're using language, if you will, as opposed to just moving things over here and there. Okay. So now, once you've gotten it open, you highlight it. You got to make sure you highlight everything. Here's a very common mistake when you're doing SPSS syntax. You don't highlight everything. You just go here and you click, you know, play, and then, you know, like, what happened? Why did my stuff come out? So just make sure for every time you paste your syntax, you highlight everything that is there, and then click the play button. And then you get your pop-up window that gives you your output. So let me, I wasn't even using the window at the time. Okay, so now let me go back to the output. Okay, let's share the output. All right, can we see the tables, the group statistics, independent samples, t-test? Yes. Okay, so in your doc, I want you to look in don't look in 2 places, but what I want to share with you is, you can either look here, because it's the same thing. Well, some of it is the same thing that I put into your document. Going back to your document, which let me go back there now, because that's what you're going to be using as opposed to this to the actual output. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So going back to your output. Here's where I am. That's highlighted because I copied it and I pasted it into the syntax. Okay, hurry up thing. And then I'm going down to page 8, because this is where what you saw in your output. I just copied and pasted the relevant tables over here. And all 3 of those tables are relevant. So I want you to, you have your output, you just ran it. If your output matches, you've done a great job. You can, we can focus then back on the PDF form that I'm showing you right now. And I want you to take a look at this part, and that is the statistical interpretation part. Group statistics. So what I named here are the tables that you should be looking at and what these things mean. So when you look at the group statistics table, that's the first table. The end column tells you the numbers of females and males, the number of people in your data set, the number of, the total numbers of people we're talking about. The mean column tells you the mean or the average writing score for each group. For females, it's 55. For males, it's 50. And then I put in your glossary how to interpret the standard deviation and the standard error. But for these purposes, you don't need that interpretation. But I give that information to you in case you ever do need to interpret your standard deviation and your standard error. And we won't go into that right now, but we can if we need to. The next table that you need to pay attention to. So basically what this is, I'm just telling you what to pull from the table, what's important for you to know from the table. And that's all going to lead up to how you write things up. The next table down it says independent samples T. And here's where your I know what I can do. Oh wait, that's not the right thing. Yes, I can do. I know what I can do. I'm going back to the table now, and I need to change my. I want you to look at the PDF document, but I'm using the same language that's in the PDF document. I'm using the same output that's in the PDF document. Should have thought more about this, about how it can go practically. Okay, let me get my. Okay, now, so look at the next, the independent samples T table. This is the table there are 2 rows provided in this table. Remember when somebody asked me about what if things are not normally distributed or whatever? This is one of the tests that gives you that tells you what to do if something is not the way the assumption is not met. If an assumption is not met in your data set. For us, if you look at the standard, basically what this is telling you is that there are 2 rows, equal variance is assumed, equal variance is not assumed. The way you determine which row to interpret is by looking at your standard deviation that's above and seeing how close they are to each other. Since 10 and 8 are close together, then we can go with the row that says equal variances are assumed. That judgment call is a lot more precise the more you do stats. But if you look at, let's just say these numbers were 10 and 65, you then know, okay, this is not, I got to go to equal variance is not assumed. But for these purposes, these numbers are really close together. They're within kind of, 2 points of each other specifically. And so you look at that column of data. When you look at that column of data, it tells you in that first row, the things that you need from that first row that I say to you that I lay out for you on page 7 are the T value and the sig value. Here in the mean difference. Here's the bottom line when it comes to reading output. You can know everything you need to know about what a T statistic is, which is basically just a test statistic. That's what the T means. You can know all you need to know about what does the F omnibus mean? What does a T statistic? What does all this stuff mean? What matters is that sig value. That is your significance test that lets you know this right here. And this is where I can use some annotation if I can find it. This right here is the most important part of you reading an output. This here, anytime you have your significance test, it's the most important part. I'm sorry, I circled the wrong thing. This one is I'm sorry. Look at me. See, I'm not used to doing this. I'm doing too much. How do I make it go away? Undo.
There you go.
Okay. so you need a T for here because you're doing a T-test. This part here for this independent samples T-test is about is telling you about whether or not this is referring you to variances and whether or not they're assumed and stuff and it's actually the opposite of what you might think it is. If the sig is statistically significant for this section here, that is what tells you to go with this row, interpret this row. You could also, again, just look up here and be like, you know what, these numbers are close together. I can go with equal variances assumed. If this is not statistically significant, if it's over 0.05, then you need to interpret this row of data. For us, because these two are very close together, and because the sig value is 0.001, which is much less than 0.05, it tells us we need this number right here, and we need this value right here, because this is the actual test. The reason why this title is up here, because it's telling you this is not the test. This is something else. This is kind of your, checking whether or not your assumptions have been made. This part is what tells you these are the results of my statistical test. And again, That t-value, it corresponds to that sig value that's over here, but this is the most important piece of your output. And determining whether or not that is less than 0.05 is the key to life in statistics. That value is far less than 0.05. That means that there is a difference, a statistically significant difference. So here's where you make sure you use the terms statistically significant difference. When your output sig value is less than 0.05, that means there is a statistically significant difference in whatever it is that you were looking for. And in this case, we wanted to know, was there a difference in writing scores by gender, by what your gender is? And the answer to that is yes. And then the next part, SPSS gives us sometimes, SPSS gives us, I need to move this out of my way. Sometimes SPSS gives us, I want to stop. How do I make myself stop annotating?
Just unclick it.
Unclick it?
Unclick.
Unclick. Look at that. Uh-oh, wait, it's giving me options.
So if you go back to where it asks you draw, write, mouse, go back to using your mouse and it should let you stop.
Oh, I see. There we go. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I want those to go away because this is in my way. Anyway, so going back down here, looking at the independent samples, the effect sizes. So let me just take a pause. The first thing you want to understand is whether or not results are statistically significant. A lot of things can be statistically significant. It is not surprising when you find statistical significance. Sometimes, get excited. Oh my God, it's statistically significant. Well, if you have enough people and you have enough things going on, you're probably going to find a statistically significant difference between them. What is most important in our field, in the field of education, especially, is that effect size. And so anytime it can be calculated, anytime it's given to you, it is important for you to understand it, to use it. The other piece I wanted to share with you in here, going back to my draw, is this mean difference. This mean difference value is the third point that you need. And that's only needed for interpretation. You can tell by looking at the means, you can tell that it's subtracted the two scores from each other. And so, so you don't have to do it. It's right here. Now, another thing I want to point out too is that, no, I don't want to point that out. Let's go down to the effect size. Cohen's D, so look at that top row. Cohen's D is the most commonly used effect size measure. And what you need here is the point estimate. You don't need that other stuff. And I show you in the glossary how I give you a Cohen's D table. It came straight from Google, and it gives you a way to interpret what an effect size means. So that is the next piece you need. So you need these tables and you need the information that I circled. And for effect size, for this one, the effect size is 0.53, negative 0.53. And then your interpretation is down there, and that is I think it's a medium effect size. And it tells you, if you go to the glossary, how you explain that. And I also talk about it right here. Here is how you write up. This is back to your document, the PDF document. The way you explain your results is to say, on average, female scored higher in math, and then put their score. Usually that's an X with a little bar over top of it, but I couldn't find my notation. I was like, forget it. So on average, females scored higher than did males in writing. That's a way for you to phrase it. And make sure you put that T statistic in parentheses, put that P value there, which really should be less than 0.001, but I didn't make the change. Anyway, and then you can go on to explain further to say female scores are almost 5 points higher in writing than males. I don't even know what that sentence says. I obviously need to correct it. And then if you look at that effect size, if you go down to the glossary and look at Cohen's D effect size, that's where I got this interpretation from. More than 69% of males scored below the average of the female group. Effect size is a way for you to give a practical kind of interpretation of these differences. So let's just say somebody wanted to, let's say somebody, all this data came from somebody did an intervention with a writing intervention, and they're making the claim. The hypothesis was, this is a great writing intervention. Females really do great in this. If you got, young women in your class, they're really going to blow the men out of the water. This is the whole point of this. And then let's say, all right, well, we did the intervention. We wanted to see what happened. And the results of it were that the males scored significantly lower than females on average, or that females scored significantly higher than males on average. And then the effect size is a medium effect size. That's a pretty good effect size. It basically is telling you anything that's I don't want to say that, but a medium and high effect size in layman's term mean that, this is some pretty good work that you might want to put some money into. It's a pretty good program, a pretty good, curriculum or whatever that you might want to, go ahead and continue to use when you get effect sizes like that. However, it is important for you guys to understand what effect size means in the context of your work. Because, so for example, I do a lot of research on social emotional learning. Small effect sizes of 0.2 and less than we have not seen effect sizes greater than 0.2. So basically, the preponderance of evidence shows that what you can expect to see. So anytime I do analysis and we get these results back and I see that there's an effect size of like 0.17 or something like that, I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. This is pretty good, because of the context of the work and knowing that social emotional learning, for whatever reason, there are plenty of reasons that go into it, but they're not these huge, big differences in the results. So I want to pause there. I want you guys to, ask me any questions that you may have. I don't think we're going to get time for practice because I do want to walk through another one, but I can set the practice up a little bit differently. I can set your homework up a little bit differently so you can make sure you get some practice. Any questions about a independent samples T-test? Okay. The next one I want us to do, just walk through, and then I can share with you kind of how to arrange your, I think it's dependent samples. Where is it? I can share with you how to arrange your, how to do your homework and kind of get some practice with some of this stuff. Parasamples T, I'm sorry. This is the other one I want us to walk through together. So we're done with all of that. I get my mouse back. This output is going to stay here for me. If you saved it, you will always have it. And then Parasamples T is on page 11. The difference in, again, when you're using this, when you're walking through this document and you're trying to decide which one applies to your work, it is a good idea for you to read the whole document and then go back through and say which one applies to my work, because there are some nuances between these different tests where you might think, oh, this is the same test as that one. Here's the situation where these are really two different types of tests. The independent samples T-test means that both of your samples, both of your groups have to be mutually exclusive from each other. No, you can't be female and male. You can't be black and white. You either in the group of the black people, the group of the white people, the Latino group, that type of thing, making sure those mutually exclusive. When it comes to doing a paired T-test, you also want to test the differences in an outcome variable, a dependent variable, a score, or something like that. But it's for the same group. This is the test people typically use when you do a pre and post test situation. You got one group of people, like you guys, you're in my course. I took a pre-test to find out what you know about stats. And then I took a post-test of you all, and you guys did a post-test, and I found out what you know at the end of the course. That's the simplest way to put it for a paired T-test. A paired T-test is one group that is measured on two separate occasions, and you want to know the difference between those two measures. Did you guys gain education? Did you learn more or something like that? Did you score higher at the end than what you knew at the very beginning? A sample question. could be our 8th grade student scores in reading equal to their scores in writing. That's not a pre and post test. That's basically saying, I'm looking at 8th grade students and I want to know how well they're reading, what are the differences between their reading and writing scores. So that's not pre-test, post-test at all, but it's a way to show I'm talking about one group of students, one group of participants, and I'm looking at 2 different measures to see what the differences are between the 2. And the way to do that, we go back to our syntax file. Okay, these things gotta go. I cleared them. Okay, so we go. So first we keep, look on page 11 and copy that information. Oh, let me share my screen. Stop share, reshare. And again, we want to do this all together as a family. Okay. Now I like to get a couple of, give me some space, don't confuse me. And so that's what I did. I made sure there's some space. Here's another way, again, why syntax is so easy, because SPS says, don't touch me if I'm in color. These are the things that we need to make sure we, change. Right now, we're looking at the differences in reading and writing scores, and we're using a paired T-test. And so if you're looking at the difference between, Pepsi drinking, people who, that's not a good one. Run times or tennis swings or whatever it is, then you make sure you put the right variable there. You highlight everything, you mash play, and you get some new output, which I'm about to go to now. Stop share, reshare. Why has that come up? Quit those. Okay. What in the world? That's not what I meant to do. Okay, so here we are. Now, again, here are the important pieces here. We have our sample statistics. We even have correlations here, which is not even needed because we're not trying to do a correlation. We have our Parasample T-Test results, and we have our effect sizes again. So going back up here, the important things you need to know, because remember, we are trying to figure out for this one, we had a group, we have you guys, and I want to know about your reading and writing scores. We only have one group. I want to know if there's a statistically significant difference in your reading and writing scores. One thing that is interesting is that these scores are very close together. An assumption you might make is, they're very close together. There's not a statistical difference between the 2 of those. So much goes into determining whether something's statistically significant. Of course, it's a good guess. It's a very educated guess, but let the data tell you whether there's a significant difference between 2 things. So this is giving you an idea of whether or not reading scores and writing scores are related to each other. And we'll talk about correlation. That's a different test. And this is something that you absolutely can do. But just for this purpose, a lot of times what you want to do is determine whether or not, a lot of times when you want to know the differences between things, you want to determine whether or not there's a correlation, and that type of thing. And so that's where that's important. In your PDF document, I share with you how to interpret that correlation coefficient, what it means, what to do with it, so you can read about that. But going down to what's important here for the interpreting these results, remember what I said. If you look at the 2 means, they look like they're very, very close together. So there's no difference between the 2. That's a good guess, because when you, the values that you need here, again, is your test statistic, which is your T value. Your test statistic, and you also need your SIG. Your SIG is short for significance value. That is telling you that there is not a statistically significant difference because that value is much greater than 0.05. So for these students, the differences in their reading, they're pretty much, there's no difference in their reading and writing scores, no statistically significant difference in their reading and writing scores. This point estimate, this co-SD point estimate tells you the effect size. And in this case, the effect is, this is where effect size becomes really interesting and important. It's just kind of no dice here. There's no big deal here. There's no huge differences, nothing to really pay attention to here. And that's basically what this is saying. And I walk you through how to, oh, I never plugged in. I walk you through again the interpretation. If you go back to page 11, I list every single table that's relevant. I skipped the correlation table. I think I skipped, oh no, I didn't. I kept the correlation table. I didn't skip any tables. Anyway, maybe I skipped the effect size table. So I tell you what is there, what it means. I tell you how to interpret the correlation table. Again, for a Parasample T-Test, you don't need to interpret the correlation table, but it doesn't hurt if you do. And I write all about it for you here. And then here's the table that says Parasample T-Test, this one right here. And it tells you how to interpret everything that is here. What I tell you is the values that you need to be writing about. And then the conclusion that you can draw. 8th grade students' mean reading and reading score is not statistically different from the mean writing score. And to write it up, this is the language you would use. And that is, we have 10 minutes left. So any questions particularly about these two tests, I can definitely answer. I want you guys to give you opportunity to ask me anything. I know this is a lot. We're in the afternoon, but I think what is best for you all. Yes, Charlemagne.
Charlemagne, oh, I was gonna say you got it.
Yes, Charlemagne. Okay, I'll keep saying what I was saying. What is best? What I think is a very good use of you guys' time, since we could not do it together within the time that we have. I'm going back to my PowerPoint now. Let me move it over. Hold on a second. Okay, and which one? Where is it? Where's the doggone PowerPoint? Oh, Jesus. Hold on. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
So the best use of you guys' time, here's what I think you should do. What we're going to do is some group work together. What I want you to do for your own homework is for you to go through this entire document. And then I want you to, I didn't mean to do that. I want you to go through the entire document, the PDF document. I want you to think about your research or any research. Think about whatever potential, because I really think it'll be great for you to do practice. Try to walk through that test. Just choose one. You might experiment with a couple of them, it's fine. But walk through everything and relax yourself. You lose nothing by doing something like that. You can use the dummy variables. You can use the dummy test or whatever. But what I want you to do is find the test. I'm sorry, when I say dummy, I didn't mean to say that. You can use the data file, this clean data file. That's what you should use for your analysis, unless you're ready to use your own data for your analysis. If you want to practice that, go ahead. But what I really think you should do is find out the test that probably is most useful for you. Practice doing it with our dummy data or with our fake data set. And make sure you know how to do it. Make sure you understand the output. Make sure you can write about it and try to experiment, play around with that, so that when we come back together next week, it can be more of, I want it to be more of a kind of collaborative discussion where you're sharing, I tried to do this test, and we all go to that test and we all kind of dig in and find out what went wrong for you, that type of thing. We won't be able to do a whole lot of that, but I want us to do a little bit of that, so that people who have practice can get kind of that hands-on instruction. And by getting that hands-on, other people can learn from it. So Charlemagne, are you ready to ask your question?
Yes, actually, I was muted. I was talking. I realized that I was muted.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. When you run the test earlier, run the pair T-test earlier, I noticed that in your data, the sig for the correlation was showing less than 0.001.
Yes.
0.001. but on my side it's showing 0.000.
Oh, okay. So here's what, let me say this. The differences might be, the best way I can put this, I transformed this entire sheet to fit SPSS. It used to be for Stata. And in Stata, when you use different statistical packages, you get the same results, but sometimes the SIG is a little more sensitive in one statistical package than the other. That's what made the differences. And so that is my mistake. But if you see, which I don't think you'll see that, you won't see any other mistake. It'll still be something that you'll reject the null, because it's still basically, you know, I mean, this is, you know, much less than 0.05. So I'm glad you asked that question. If you guys do see the discrepancies in your output and mine, it'll be something very simple, only because I might not have made the correction to what SPSS puts out as opposed to what Stata puts out. But the response will still be the same, because it's not going to change like that. You know, that these packages are kind of running the same type of background. So thank you for that question, Charlemagne. And let me just ask you guys, like, are you in a place where you can even think about, and all of you might not be in the same place, but are you in a place where you can think about your research at this time, or at least, you know, mess around and play around about something that you think you might be doing? Yes, no. Oh, good, Mila. Good. Yay. So I hope you find something, Mila, that is that's useful for you, and then something that we can bring back together. And Callie, you too. Please do use the document. I understand that this is a very simplified way of doing it, but the reason it's all simplified is because you only need to know what you need to know to finish your dissertation, and you need to know it really well. And if you can get that, you're golden. Anything else for the good of the order?
Charlemagne, you have another question?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize.
Anybody else? Any other questions for Dr. Wiggins? Any other questions? Anything that may need some clarification? Does everybody have the documents? And she will be sending me the PowerPoint, so I'll make sure to share that with you all as well. James, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone who is present at this particular presentation. Dr. Wiggins, thank you. One question that I want to ask is basically on the gender variable, especially when we had 0 and 1. I remember when I was doing statistics at the master's level, one of the professors who taught me indicated that the female or male variable are continual variables. I wanted to find out if that is appropriate.
Okay, say that again. I'm doing two things at once. Not that I didn't hear anything you said, but tell me ask me the question about what is appropriate again.
I was asking that I had the statistics class before. That was 2016.
Okay.
The professor taught us, and he indicated that the gender variables are continuous or categorical. So I wanted to find out if what he said is actually true based on what I heard from you.
Yes. Here's what I see you're kind of unpack. So there is a categorical variable. The reason why gender, race, you know, a lot of these are categories because they're categories, like they're mutually exclusive categories. You can be male, you can be female, you can be trans, you can be, you know, all whatever it is, right? That's why they're categories. When you are trying to do a statistical analysis, you need to create a numerical value a lot of times for the statistics to run properly. And so in order for the way that you do that is you create dummy variables And that's why you see that they're female and male when, you know, in the output is telling you that it might be female and male, or it might be using those dummy variables. 0 means female, 1 means male. And so that is absolutely accurate. But sometimes you'll do the same thing with, like, whenever I have to run stats on like race and stuff, I need to change it. I need to change, you know, African-American to 1, Latino to 2, you know, that type of thing, because of what I need to do when I run the data. So in your data, James, let's say you do a Qualtrics survey, you get the data back, and the data, everything is a whole bunch of words. I got, you know, you got male and female for gender. You got rate, you know, you got the words African-American, Latino, whatever. That means that you have to go in and then recode those variables. You can do it manually if you don't have a lot of data. You can do it in Excel where you do a find and replace, but you know, where you go in and you just change female to 0, and you know, you can do it a lot of ways. You can do it in the SPSS, which is easy, but you have to go and do that if you're going to be running quantitative statistics, because the only tests that work with words are like the chi-square test. Sometimes logistic, that doesn't work with words. So you have to, you know, it's important for you to recode into numerical values, but they're still categorical. Don't think that they're now, you know, interval level variables. No, it's still a category. You just kind of gave it a different name, if that makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, James. Dr. Fleming, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, and Dr. Wiggins, I tried messaging about it. So when I try to put in multiple t-test pairs, for some reason the most recent one would go in. Would I be able to do all 3?
Say that again. You
Okay.
tried to run multiple t-tests?
Yes, so I try to do a t-test pair, you know, equal read and write, and then math and read, math and write. And when I did it, only the most recent t-test was
interesting. So I'll say this: I haven't used SPSS in a long time. I used to be able to run, like, highlight a lot of syntax and run multiple tests. So I don't know why it didn't give you all of the tests that you tried to run. But you actually just made me think about something else. And this is just hold on to this bit of information. When you are doing Christine, Dr. Fleming, you never want to run multiple t-tests. The choice that you need to make, let's just say you want to know the differences between, let's say you have one full data set. And, like, for example, our data set has reading scores, math scores, social, all of this stuff, right? And you want to know the difference between these different scores. Do not run multiple t-tests. Choose to do an ANOVA. And ANOVA allows you to enter in a lot of different variables. ANOVA is one, and then there's some other ones, you know, MANOVA, that gives you a lot of different options for adding multiple dependent variables, multiple independent variables, that type of thing. So effectively, when you're actually doing your own work, if you find yourself continuing to run t-tests, you're going down the wrong path. Stop yourself. And then look at ANOVA, look at MANOVA, look at some of those regression models to see, okay, I got a whole bunch of different dependent variables. Or you can go to that first page of that table where it says, if you have more than 2 dependent variables, use this test.
Right, definitely. Well, and actually, I don't usually run t-tests. I usually do regressions and chi-squares. Yeah. But I was just trying to take the quick way if I was going to run some things, and I just wanted to put it all in there if I could do more than one. So
I got you. I used to be able to. I don't know why it's just only doing one at a time. That doesn't make sense that it would do that, because it doesn't care. That will let you do whatever. You know, it's not thinking like, no, don't run multiple t-tests, you know. So I don't know what that problem was. And yes, good. I'm a regression fan as well. I think it's good. Good.
Me too. I can't wait for next week.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, I know this was a lot. Again, I know somebody asked me, can they contact me in between time? I will say yes in between this week. Between now and next week, but if you do contact me, I'm happy for you to do it, but please be very clear about what it is that you need from me. Only because I just have limited time, and I'm willing to offer you guys my time, but I just want to make sure you just, you know, say, look, this is what I did. It didn't work. You know, just kind of like Dr. Fleming just did, and what went wrong, and then I can kind of answer your question or whatever. So,
thank you so much, Dr. Wiggins. I put my email address in the chat. That's so I know Dr. Wiggins will be sending me her PowerPoint, so I'll make sure to provide you with that as well. So if you could just email me and just say, hey, Dr. Shakir, I need the PowerPoint from the presentation the other day. And then you also have Dr. Wiggins' contact information there as well. So please just email us for the PowerPoint, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And we're really excited about next week.
All right, practice, 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 and bring some questions for us to unpack together. So thank you. It was